Welcome to First Unitarian Church of Oklahoma City, where our mission is to explore the eternal, nurture community, and pursue the common good. We welcome you in your brokenness and in your wholeness. No matter who you have been, who you are, or who you are becoming, we greet you today with love. Today's service will feature a sermon and story for all ages from UUA President Rev Susan Frederick-Gray, as well as music from the All Souls Unitarian Universalist congregation in Washington, D.C. These elements of the service have been provided by the UUA as a gift to all member congregations, knowing that the majority of us are in the middle of our pledging season right now. This service is one of just so many things that our UUA provides us, including leadership development webinars and other resources for staff and lay leaders, materials and guidance for our welcoming congregation, accessibility and inclusion ministry, and green sanctuary teams, religious exploration curricula for all ages, support from our congregational life staff in the Southern region, and access to funding opportunities like the UU Disaster Relief Grant, which awarded over $20,000 to members of our congregation after the October ice storm. There are only 3 requirements to be a member of the Unitarian Universalist Association, to be a congregational member. 1, holding worship services on a regular basis. 2, holding at least 1 congregational meeting per year, which includes electing lay leaders. And 3, making a financial contribution to the Unitarian Universalist Association. The UUA asks that each congregation make a contribution to the annual program fund at the rate of 6.75% of the previous year's operating expenses. Many congregations contribute at that level, and they are recognized as honor congregations. Sadly, First Unitarian is not an honor congregation and hasn't been for some time, but your church leadership would love for that to change. In the meantime, a portion of your pledge to First Unitarian does go to support the UUA at national and regional levels, meaning that when you support your congregation, you also support the larger faith. Although we're now more than halfway through our pledge campaign for our next church year, we've received pledges for less than half of our members. And we're only about halfway to our goal of raising $450,000 for next year. Because 100% of our offering each week goes to support partner organizations, we rely on pledges to fund our operating and program expenses. So if you haven't made your pledge yet, please do so now. Thank you. Our opening music is Love's Divine, and again, this is performed by members of All Souls congregation in Washington, D.C.
Then a rainstorm but time through a prayer to me, and all around me became still. I need love, love divine. Please forgive me now. I see that I've been blind. Give me love. Love is what I need to help me know my name. In the rainstorm, came sanctuary, and I felt my spirits fly. I have found all of my reality. I realize what it takes. Give me love, love divine. Please forgive me now. I see that I've been blind. Give me love. Love is what I need to help me know my name. Oh, I don't beg, don't pray. Show me how to live and promise me you won't stay. Love will help me know my name. Well, I try to say there's nothing wrong, but deep inside I feel me dying all along. But the message here is plain to see. Believe me, give me love, love divine. Please forgive me now. I see that I've been blind. I need love. Love is what I need to help me know my name. Oh, I don't beg, don't break. Teach me how to live and promise me you won't stay. Love, love is what I need to help me know my name. I need love, love divine. Please forgive me now. I see that I've been blind. Give me love. Love is what I need to help me know my name. I need love, love divine. Please forgive me now. I see that I've been blind. I need love, love is what I need to help me know my name. Oh, give me love, love divine. Please forgive me now. I see that I've been blind. Give me love. Love is what I need. Love is what I need to help me. When I've walked to the end of my road, I've walked to the end of my road. Love, love, I need love. Love is what I need to help me know my name. And if you just love me, love will help me know my name.
We skipped our order a little bit. I'd like to go back to Carson Hunter, who is going to light our chalice today in honor of Carson's birthday. He's turning 12 years old this Wednesday. And somewhere, if not in the camera, if not in the shot of the camera, is Barnaby the dog assisting as well.
We light the chalice as a symbol of our sacred time together. The burning chalice represents the light of reason and science, the warmth of loving community, the cleansing heat of justice, and the flame of hope.
Thank you so much, Carson, and happy birthday. Our story for all ages is told by UUA President Reverend Susan Frederick-Gray.
I'm joining you here from First Parish in Cambridge, and I want to thank the First Parish community and Reverend Adam Lawrence Dyer for offering their space to us. First Parish sits on the occupied land of the Massachusetts people. A community of the Massachusetts people still live in Massachusetts in the community of Canton. I have a story for you today, and there's two things that are important about this story. Number one, it's a true story. And number two, it's an anonymous story. So I read this story many years ago in Yes magazine, and the author of the story was listed only as Jane B. I love this story because it speaks to the fact that even in incredibly difficult circumstances, that the presence of love, that acts of generosity and hospitality really are life-saving. Here's Jane's story. Jane and her brother grew up in the 1940s in Hollywood, California, a town known for show business. Now, Jane says that she and her brother were adopted by their parents, not because their parents loved children, but because their parents thought it completed the image of the perfect Hollywood family. A beautiful home in Beverly Hills, a fleet of servants, 2 adorable children, and a little spaniel dog. Jane and her brother hardly ever saw their parents. They were largely raised by the housekeepers and nannies. It was only on Sunday when the whole family went to the country club. There, Jane and her brother were expected to be perfectly well behaved, not to run around or get dirty, to know which piece of silverware to use at every course, to be seen but not heard. They were taught to speak only when spoken to. Looking back, Jane said of herself, "I wasn't a real girl. I was a cardboard cutout of a girl." Jane's best memories from her childhood were when she was with her grandmother. And one day, her grandmother took her to a rummage sale in a church basement. Now, this was Hollywood, California. So this rummage sale was filled with costumes and fancy clothes that were from the movies or from movie stars. Jane's grandmother gave her $2, which was a lot of money at that time, and said, "Buy whatever you want." Well, Jane went home with 2 armfuls of things, and as soon as she got home, she ran straight up to her room with all of that loot, and she started trying things on. Finally, she settled on a little pink night dress, a big broad hat, white satin gloves, and every piece of costume jewelry that she bought. She looked at herself in the mirror, and Jane was awestruck. She looked like a different person. She decided to give herself a new name, Madame Modifus. Now, whereas Jane was quiet, Madame Modifus was bold. And whereas Jane was shy, Madame Modifus was flamboyant. And whereas Jane always did exactly as she was told, Well, Madame Maudipus, she had a mind of her own. Jane, all dressed up, ran down the stairs across the yard to the house next door and knocked on the door. When the mother next door and her little son opened the door, their jaws fell open. Jane said, "My name is Madame Maudipus. May I come in for tea?" Well, the mother and her son, they welcomed Jane into their home. They played for hours, and then Jane went back to her house. Now, any time that Jane had a little bit of time to herself, she would get all dressed up and she would run to the neighbor's house, and they just came to call her Madame Maudipus. Jane ends her story by sharing how she now is a grandmother, and that one of her favorite things to do is to visit her own grandchildren, and that whenever she goes to see them, they wait for her outside on the yard, and when she pulls into the driveway, they jump up and down and scream her name, Maudie, 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 the only name they've ever known her by.
And Michael, would you do our call to offering, please?
Hello, I'm Michael Kay. I'm one of your board members. I also serve on the Lifespan Religious Exploration team. Every Sunday, we take an offering. All the cash and designated checks from that offering go directly to external nonprofit organizations doing good work in our community, our Change for Change partners. This month, our Change for Change partner is Pambe, Ghana. Pambe, Ghana is a partnership with local communities in northern Ghana and a United States-based board of directors. First Unitarian has been a long-time supporter of this program. Together, we have built the La Angum Learning Center, an innovative school for bilingual child-centered education from pre-kindergarten to age 6. You may wish to make a donation to our Change for Change partner using a credit card through our website, or you can always write out a check and put it aside to mail to First Unitarian tomorrow morning. Let today's offering reflect our highest aspirations for the work of this church in the world.
There are days that I won't mountain where smile my face, and I can keep pain from running out my eyes. Sometimes I cry. Sometimes I cry. When I can't do nothing else. Everybody keeps telling me, child, keep moving on. But I can't see the go nowhere. 'Cause every single day and every single night I'm praying Jesus. But sometimes I cry. do nothing else.
Our stewardship testimonial today is from Sarah Gray and Mordecai Hornpetrie.
Hello, I'm Mordecai,
And I'm Sarah.
and I've been coming to First UU in Oklahoma City since I was a teenager, but I'm a lifetime UU and a spiritual seeker of all times.
And I started coming when Myra was probably like 5, so about 6 years. And I really came just for her. And then I realized it was the community for all of us, for me as well.
And Sarah and Myra are the reason that I came back to church after my 20s, because I knew that the RE program is really important to me growing up, and it has been to Myra over the years that we have come back as a family. And we feel very supported and very loved and part of something bigger when we come to UU. We believe it's important to support the church, not only in our hearts and our minds, but also financially with whatever we can help.
And that way we can continue to see our community grow and thrive, and just continue to, bring what they can to our younger, I guess, RE.
Yeah, the RE, the welcome community we have, the choir, just everybody and everything that within the church is very special. And every single time I am experiencing these things with each other and with these people, I get just a little bit happier and a little bit more light in my eyes. So I guess I want to say welcome to this beautiful Sunday, and thanks for having us and listening to us.
Thank you so much, Sarah and Mordecai. Today is a time of important anniversaries and days of recognition. It was 1 year ago, it was on Sunday, March 8th, that was the last time that we were all together in person in our sanctuary. In honor of this year that we have made it through, I want to remind you that tomorrow evening we'll have a special Vespers service at 7 o'clock. Please join us for that service for some readings and music and for some sharing of both the things that have come into our lives during this past year and the beloved things and the beloved people that we have lost in the last year. So please join us tomorrow. Also, 56 years ago today, on March 7th, about 600 Black children and adults were on their way from Selma to the state capital of Montgomery, Alabama, when they were attacked and beaten mercilessly on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Later that same year, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was passed into law. Sadly, the rights gained under that law are being whittled away or hacked away every day. May our actions today honor the memory of those who fought so hard for the right for all to vote. And tomorrow is International Women's Day. And so may we take this time to also remember all those brave individuals who have given so much so that all of us may live to our full potential. And now at this time, I invite you in the chat or simply in the sacred space of your hearts to lift up the names of all those that you are grateful for, all those that you're holding in your hearts, for your joys, your sorrows, your concerns. For all those dear ones that we hold in our hearts, in gratitude for their existence in our lives, and in prayer that they may heal, that they may find peace, that they may find strength. For all this and for so much more, we pray, may it be. Amen.
Yes, love is what I need to know my name. These words from the artist's seal capture the meaning of our story today. The story of Jane and her discovery of her full self and her real name, Maudie. Jane's story captured my attention the first time I read it. Her words, "I wasn't a real girl. I was a cardboard cutout of a girl." They stayed with me. It's clear the trauma and the pain of her home life. And this isn't unique or even uncommon for children, for any of us. So many of us know these experiences in our home lives, in our work lives, or in the stifling cultural conditions of oppression that seek to make us small, quiet, invisible. Conditions that seek to rob us of our fullness. But then something happens for Jane. Through the love of her grandmother, the generous embrace of the neighbors, and a little bit of imagination, Jane's full self, Maudie, finds expression. The freedom she experiences is in moments. Those moments when she's able to steal away from her house and go to her neighbors. But it is enough. These small moments of joy and love in the midst of the neglect and the suffering, they are life-saving. Zora Neale Hurston writes, "Love makes your soul crawl out from its hiding place." And that is exactly what Maudie's soul does. She is loved into the fullness of her being. I hear echoes of my own story in this story. And maybe you do too. For me, in a time of tremendous difficulty in my life, my UU church was the neighbor's house, full of warmth and welcome, music and imagination. And the grandmother, that was my Sunday school teachers, whose love and care, coupled with joy and attention, it made a difference in my life when I most needed it. That congregation, that community, those teachers, they helped me find my voice, my spirit, my soul. They loved me into being. I imagine that you too have stories like this. How Unitarian Universalism, its theology, its people, its ministry changed you, saved your life, helped your soul crawl out of its hiding space. How it helped grow the size of your soul. As process theologian Bernard Loomer so powerfully describes, By size, I mean the stature of a person's soul, the range and depth of your love, your capacity for relationships. I mean the volume of life you can take into your being and still maintain your integrity and individuality. There's so much expansiveness and generosity in Loomer's definition of the size of your soul. And he goes on. He says, I mean the strength of your spirit to encourage others to become freer in the development in their diversity and uniqueness. I mean the magnanimity of concern to provide conditions that enable others to increase in stature. You see, Loomer is not just talking about individual growth and liberation. And this matters to us as Unitarian Universalists because our faith has never been solely about individual spiritual growth. As Unitarian Universalists, we understand salvation not as individual but collective. We recognize the fundamental interconnectedness, interdependence of all life and of humanity. Foundational to the core theological idea of interdependence is that mutuality and responsibility are inherent to who we are as human beings. We are not islands. And our tradition calls us not to individual freedom or transformation alone, but to the liberation and thriving of all people. One of the most important and successful campaigns within Unitarian Universalism over this past year was UU the Vote, a national effort for Unitarian Universalists to partner with local grassroots organizing and voting rights groups on an unprecedented voter engagement, voter registration, and voter turnout effort. It was the first ever effort like this on our part as a larger association, and it was awesome. But here's something you may not know about UU the Vote. When I first shared the idea for UU the Vote at the 2019 General Assembly, I didn't know if it would take hold. I was simply throwing out a seed of a dream, imagining there before thousands of you, congregational delegates at GA, I asked, what if we as UUs helped engage and mobilize 1 million people to vote in the 2020 election? When I said that, it was scary. It seemed impossible. And in fact, the next time I talked about UU the Vote at a local congregation, I reduced the number to 500,000. But before we'd even started to create the team and the infrastructure, when we were still just talking about this idea, congregational leaders, ministers, religious educators, and members were clamoring to volunteer. Financial gifts began coming in, some unsolicited. Folks were ready to say yes, ready to give generously of their time and resources because they knew that our values of justice and compassion, that our system of democracy, and the literal lives and well-being of our neighbors, of our loved ones, of each other were on the line and on the ballot. Thousands of people volunteered. Thousands of donors came forward from our congregations, many of you, and together we invested tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of hours and well over $1 million to vote love in the 2020 election. And in the end, we reached well over 3 million potential voters, far exceeding our wildest dreams. In what was the largest, most transparent and accessible election in our history, we UUs played a significant role. And we were likely the largest, most organized, faith-based, pro-democracy effort during the election. Wow. Imagination, generosity, commitment, collective action. These fueled UU the Vote. But there was also some magic to it, because it recognized our strengths and it invited us more fully into who we are. For we are the people who show up. We are the people who work together in community. We are people who believe in democracy, who understand our faith as active, who are concerned about the conditions of justice here and now, and who, when it comes right down to it, are a hopeful people. We are a hopeful people about what is possible and about our agency and capacity to meet the challenges of our time. Some of the magic of UU the Vote was that together we were loving each other into the fullness of who we are as Unitarian Universalists. But this isn't the end of the story. It is a reminder. It is a glimpse of what is possible when we say yes. When we say yes so generously and powerfully to what we believe in, to what we care about, to our ministries, our values, and when we choose solidarity, interdependence with wider networks of people working for justice, compassion, and liberation. From the beginning of my time as UUA president, I have said, this is no time for a casual faith, no time for a casual commitment to what you love most, and this is no time to go it alone. UU the Vote is just one example of what it looks like to take our faith, our values, and our commitment to interdependence seriously. It is life-saving, life-changing ministry, individually in our own lives, and revolutionary when we bring that powerful yes out into the world. And this yes is what is needed so deeply in our communities and our world right now. To love our society, to love our world into a new place of being. In her important book, Caste, Isabel Wilkerson explores the conditions of racism, white supremacy, and racial hierarchy as an American caste system. And in her book, she quotes Gary Michael Tartikoff, an American scholar of castes, who says of the United States, "This is a civilization searching for its humanity. It dehumanized others in order to build its civilization, and now it needs to find its own." There's power in those words and that history. So how do we find our humanity as a society, as a country, as a civilization? The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said the key was love. By love, King did not mean a sentimental or romantic kind of love, but rather an overflowing, audacious, and unconditional love that sought the fullest unfolding of every person. King said this love might well be the salvation of our civilization. The only way that we overcome the forces of racism, domination, discrimination, dehumanization, the forces that are at the foundation of the United States, those forces that have the effect of dehumanizing our society, the only way we overcome those forces is to turn to the deepest source of our humanity. And as Unitarian Universalists, we know that that foundation, that source of our humanity, is our compassion and our interdependence, our mutuality and relationship and responsibility to each other. In other words, I would take Bernard Loomer's words and King's words and say, we need to grow the size of our love. And by size, as Loomer says, I mean the range and depth of your love, your capacity for relationships. I mean the volume of life you can take into your being. I mean the strength of your spirit to encourage others to become freer, to provide conditions that enable others to increase their stature, the size of their love and their soul. And this is where the real spiritual depth and calling of our faith lives, not just as an intellectual exercise, but as embodiment. Embodying and growing our capacity for this powerful form of love that encourages all of us to live into the fullness of our being and that is committed to the conditions that make this fullness possible for everyone. Compassion, interdependence. Looking back, the love of her grandmother, that trip to the church rummage sale, and the generous, inclusive embrace of her neighbors made a powerful difference to young Jane, to Maudie. Looking back, the warmth and magic of my UU church and the love and care of my Sunday school and youth leaders shaped my life and my calling in ways that I will always be grateful for and will never be able to repay. Looking back, UU the Vote became this incredible source of community, joy, and positive action in the midst of what was one of the most traumatic times in our lives. It drew us together in unprecedented ways and was a lifeline. And this is not the end of the story. It's just a glimpse, just a few stories to capture some of what is possible in all of our congregations when we say yes. When we say yes boldly, audaciously, powerfully to our values, to our spirits and our love, and to one another. These stories and more are happening all across our congregations. None of us will ever know all the difference that our generosity to our congregations has made to the lives of our children, our families, our elders, to the lives and conditions of our larger communities. We'll never know all the ways that we have helped make a difference. When we give boldly, generously, audaciously of our financial resources as we are able, we make our values and our ministry manifest in the world. When we give generously of our hearts and our care and our love to our children and families, elders and adults, young adults and youth, we change lives. We save lives. And when we dream big, as leaders and staff about the impact we are called to make in the wider world, lives are changed. The material conditions of our communities can change. We are changed. We make it possible. Loved into fullness, loved into being. May we keep saying yes, boldly, courageously, and lovingly to our values and our faith. May it be so.
Our closing music is again courtesy of All Souls Congregation in Washington, D.C. This is Rise Up, as written by Andra Day.
You're broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can find the fighter, but I see it in you, so we go walk it out. And ooh, God in your heart. You can have everything, but what does it mean? It all means nothing. Don't rise up for something. You just can't talk the talk. You gotta live the talk. Yes, you do. It all means nothing. Don't rise up for something. Rise up for you. Self-respect, dignity. If it's all that you got, then it's all that you need. And without that, you don't have a thing. And it all means nothing. Don't rise up for something. Just can't talk the talk. You gotta live the talk. Yes, you do. And it all means nothing. Don't rise up for something. Rise up for you. Rise up, rise up, rise up, reach for you. And I'll rise up for you. Rise up, rise up, rise up, reach for you. And I'll rise up for you.
Carson, would you extinguish our chalice?
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of love and community, which burns in our hearts.
Thank you, James. That's Carson's dad. For 1 year now, we have been meeting virtually, and it has been hard. We've missed so much. The beauty of live music, the sacred experience of lifting our voices together, and the joy of just being in a room together. This pandemic will end. We're getting closer every day. So hold on. Don't get discouraged. Hold on. Know that your community is still here, loving, learning, growing, striving to be more, to do more, to embody our message of courageous love. We are still here. Hold on a little bit longer. Know that you are loved. I'm going to play a postlude. This is called Nina Cried Power by Andrew Hosier Byrne. Again, thanks to the All Souls congregation in DC. And I want to remind you, after the postlude is over, to please come back for our virtual coffee hour. And thanks to Chris Gonzalez, who will be our host for a coffee hour today, as once again, all of your staff will be over in another session of Completing the Circle. So thank you to Chris for so much, but for today, especially for hosting our coffee hour. Many blessings on all of you. I hope to see many of you tomorrow evening at our Vesper service in honor of our 1-year pandemic. Be well, be safe, be loved. We'll see you soon.